Chapter 1. When wolves hunt in winter storm had teeth. Alara pressed herself against the cabin door, her breath coming in shallow gasps that fogged the frozen air. Snow whipped through the pines like shattered glass, each gust stealing what little warmth remained in her threadbare coat. She'd been running for 3 days since she'd walked in on Marcus with her sister. 3 days since her entire life had collapsed like rotted timber. The cabin wasn't hers. She'd broken a window to get inside, her guilt swallowed by desperation. It was small, rustic, and clearly abandoned door, at least unoccupied for the winter. The furniture sat beneath dust covers like ghosts, and the fireplace held only cold ash. But it had walls, a roof. It was shelter. And that was more than she'd had since fleeing the city with nothing but a backpack and her grandmother's journal. Alara fumbled with numb fingers to light the ancient oil lamp she'd found. Weak amber light spilled across rough-hewn logs, revealing her reflection in a darkened window. She looked feral, hair matted with ice, lips blue, eyes too wide. She looked like prey. The thought made her shudder. She was dragging a moth-eaten blanket from the couch when she heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the storm. A low, rattling breath, animal, close. Her blood turned to slush. Slowly, she turned toward the back of the cabin. In the corner, partially hidden by shadow, something massive shifted. The lamplight caught on dark fur, matted with blood and snow. A wolf, no too large to be a wolf. Its shoulder came up to her waist even as it lay collapsed on the floor, ribs heaving with labored breath. Alara should have run. Should have thrown open that door and taken her chances with the blizzard. But the creature's eyes found hers amber. Impossibly human, and she saw something that froze her more completely than the cold ever could. Pain, desperation. Please, don't, the wolf whimpered. A sound so broken it carved itself into her chest. Oh God, she breathed. She'd always been this way. Her mother called it foolish. Marcus called it weak. Alara had a habit of collecting strays, 3-legged cats, injured birds, people who needed someone to believe in them. She'd rescued Marcus from a bar fight once, stitched him up in her apartment while he promised her the world. He'd promised her sister the same thing. Apparently, the wolf's breathing hitched, pulling her back to the present. Blood pooled beneath its flank, dark against the worn floorboards. Alara moved before she could reconsider, dropping to her knees beside the massive creature. This close, she could see the gaseous claw marks raking across its side, a deep puncture in its shoulder. What happened to you? She whispered. The wolf's eyes tracked her movements, intelligent and alert despite its injuries. It didn't growl, didn't bare teeth. It simply watched as she shrugged off her backpack with shaking hands. She had antiseptic. She'd grabbed her first aid kit in her panicked flight, along with her grandmother's journal and 3 changes of clothes. Not much to show for 26 years of life. The kit was meant for human injuries, minor cuts and scrapes. But it was all she had. This is insane, Alara muttered, uncapping the antiseptic. You could kill me. You should probably kill me for breaking into your cabin. Is this your cabin? Of course you can't answer that. You are. She pressed guns to the worst wound, and the wolf's entire body went rigid. A rumble built in its chest. But the creature held still, muscles trembling with restraint. Alara worked quickly, her nursing school training kicking in despite the surreal circumstances. Clean the wound. Apply pressure. Watch for signs of shock. The wolf was definitely in shock. So was she. I don't know what I'm doing, she admitted, her voice cracking. I don't know anything anymore. 3 days ago I had a life. A fiancé, a sister I loved. Now I'm in some stranger's cabin, talking to a wolf the size of a bear. And I think I'm finally losing my mind. Her hands moved mechanically. Gauze, tape, pressure. The storm howled outside and inside the cabin. Girl and beast existed in a bubble of lamplight and shared desperation. You're lucky I'm a terrible judge of character, Alara continued, blinking back tears. Everyone says so. Marcus said I was too trusting, too naive. Maybe he was right. Maybe that's why I didn't see what was right in front of me. The wolf made a sound, not quite a growl, softer, almost sympathetic. She laughed, broken and wet. Now I'm projecting emotions onto wildlife. Perfect. But she kept talking, kept working, because the alternative was silence and the memories that lived there. She told the Wolf about Marcus's promises, about the engagement ring that was probably still sitting on her sister Bethany's knitstand, about the grandmother who'd raised her, who'd filled Alara's head with stories of magic and fate and love that conquered all. Stories she'd stopped believing in somewhere between nursing school and real life. By the time she'd done all she could with her limited supplies, exhaustion sat on her shoulders like stones. The Wolf's breathing had evened out, though it still looked at her with those unsettling, too aware eyes. You should sleep, Alara murmured. I should sleep. We should definitely not be sharing this cabin, but I'm too tired to care. She pulled the blanket around herself and curled up on the couch, as far from the wounded animal as the small space allowed. The lamp flickered, casting dancing shadows. Outside, the storm raged on. Valera's last thought before sleep claimed her was that the Wolf's eyes had looked almost grateful. She didn't see the way the creature watched her through the night, protective and unwavering, as snow piled against the windows and something far more dangerous than weather circled in the darkness beyond. Word count 1043. Chapter 2. The stranger in the morning light. Alara woke to silence, not the peaceful kind, the wrong kind. The storm had passed, leaving behind a stillness so complete it felt like the world had stopped breathing. Weak sunlight filtered through ice-crusted windows, turning the cabin into a snow globe of frozen light. And the Wolf was gone. She sat up too quickly, her heart hammering against her ribs. The corner where the massive creature had lain was empty except for dark stains on the floorboards, blood that proved she hadn't imagined the whole thing. The first aid supplies lay scattered where she'd left them, gauze wrappers and antiseptic bottles bearing witness to the surreal night. Hello. Her voice came out hoarse, swallowed by the cabin's stillness. Nothing. No response. No sound except the creak of old wood settling and her own ragged breathing. Alara stood on unsteady legs, pulling the blanket around her shoulders like armor. The cabin looked different in daylight, still rustic, still abandoned, but now she could see details she'd missed. Photographs on the mantel, faces turned down, books on shelves, spines unreadable beneath dust. A life interrupted, frozen in time. The back door stood slightly ajar. Her stomach dropped. She'd locked that door last night, she was certain of it. Hadn't she? But then again, she'd been half frozen, exhausted, tending to a Wolf that couldn't possibly have been as large as she remembered. Alara moved toward the door, her bare feet silent on cold wood. Through the gap, she could see snow piled in drifts, pristine and unmarked. No tracks, no blood trail. Nothing to suggest a wounded animal had dragged itself out into the wilderness. She was definitely losing her mind. The sound of splitting would made her jump. It came from outside, rhythmic, purposeful. Someone was chopping firewood. Someone human. Alara's pulse kicked into overdrive. She wasn't alone. The cabin wasn't abandoned after all, and she'd broken in like a common criminal. Worse, she'd probably just spent the night hallucinating about a Wolf while the actual owner was out hunting, trapped by the storm. She needed to leave now, but when she turned back to grab her backpack, a shadow fell across the threshold. A man filled the doorway, arms loaded with split logs, and Alara forgot how to breathe. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair that fell past his collar and a jawline that could cut glass. But it was his eyes that stopped her cold. Amber, the same impossible amber she'd seen in the Wolf's gaze, now set in an achingly human face. You're awake, he said. His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in days or years. Alara took an involuntary step back. I'm sorry. I broke in. The storm. I didn't think anyone lived here. I'll go. You'll freeze. He moved past her with unsettling grace, setting the wood by the fireplace. Up close, she could see he wore only jeans and a flannel shirt, unbuttoned despite the cold. No coat, no boots. His feet were bare against the icy floor. And on his shoulder, visible through the open shirt, was a fresh scar. Exactly where she'd bandaged the Wolf's wound. The world tilted. "You should sit down," the man said, not looking at her as he arranged kindling in the fireplace. "You've had a shock. Who are you?" The question came out as a whisper. Declan. He struck a match, and flames caught with unnatural speed. "And you're in my cabin, the Wolf." Alara's voice failed. She tried again. There was a wolf. Last night. It was injured. Declan's hands stilled for just a moment. "There are no wolves in these woods." Not anymore. It wasn't denial, exactly. More like a warning. Alara sank onto the couch, her legs refusing to hold her. She watched him work efficient, economical movements that spoke of long practice. He built the fire like someone who'd done it 1,000 times. Who knew exactly how much wood, how much air, how to coax warmth from cold ash. "You're not afraid of me," Declan observed, finally turning to face her. In the firelight, his features were all sharp angles and shadows. Beautiful in a dangerous way, like a blade. "Should I be?" Most people are. There was something in his tone loneliness so profound it made her chest ache. Alara knew that feeling. She'd carried it for 3 days, running from a life that had revealed itself as a beautiful lie. But his loneliness felt older, deeper, like he'd been alone so long he'd forgotten what it meant to be anything else. "I'm not most people," she said quietly. Declan's expression flickered surprise. Maybe, or recognition. He moved to the window, putting distance between them. The storm dumped 4 feet of snow. "The road down the mountain won't be passable for days. Are you telling me I'm trapped here?" "I'm telling you that leaving would be suicide." He glanced back at her, and in that amber gaze, she saw a flash of something wild. "With me is the safest place you could be right now." The words should have sounded like a threat. Instead, they felt like a promise. Alara pulled her grandmother's journal from her backpack, needing something familiar to ground her. The worn leather cover was soft beneath her fingers, pages filled with her grandmother's elegant script. Stories of magic and mystery, of people who weren't quite human, of bonds that transcended the ordinary world. Stories Alara had always thought were fairy tales. "What's that?" Declan asked, his attention sharpening. "Nothing. Just family history." He took a step closer, then stopped himself, visibly restraining some impulse. "Your grandmother. She told you stories." It wasn't a question. Alara looked up sharply. "How did you? You talked in your sleep." But there was something evasive in his tone, something he wasn't saying. "You should eat." "There's supplies in the kitchen." He left before she could respond, disappearing into what she assumed was a bedroom. The door closed with quiet finality, and Alara was alone again with a crackling fire and questions that multiplied like shadows. She looked down at her hands still stained with blood from last night. The wolf's blood, Declan's blood dot outside. The sun climbed higher and deep in the forest. Something howled. Word count 1089. Chapter 3. Walls made of silent Seth. Kitchen was surprisingly well stocked for an abandoned cabin. Alara ran her fingers along shelves lined with canned goods. Dried herbs in glass jars, a bag of coffee that smelled fresh when she opened it. Someone lived here. Someone who planned to stay through the winter. Isolated from the world. Someone who could apparently survive massive wounds overnight. She made coffee with shaking hands, the mundane task a lifeline to sanity. The percolator bubbled on the ancient stove, filling the cabin with a rich aroma that almost masked the scent of wood smoke and something else. Something wild, like pine and earth and winter storms. Declan emerged from the bedroom as she poured 2 mugs. He'd changed into a black thermal that clung to broad shoulders and revealed nothing about the wound that should have left him bedridden. His hair was damp, pulled back from his face, making those amber eyes even more striking. "You didn't have to," he said. Nodding at the second mug, common courtesy, Alara held it out. And when their fingers brushed during the exchange, a jolt ran up her arm. Electric, inevitable. His eyes widened fractionally. He'd felt it too. They stood in awkward silence, the cabin suddenly too small. Alara retreated to the window, coffee warming her frozen hands. Outside, the world was a pristine white wasteland. Beautiful and deadly. "How long have you lived here?" she asked. 5 years. Declan leaned against the counter, maintaining the careful distance. Alone, that's a long time to be isolated. It's necessary. The word hung between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Elara turned to really study him. He held himself like a man perpetually ready to run or fight, muscles coiled with tension even in stillness. But there was something else, too. Sadness that ran bone deep, etched into the hard lines of his face. "What are you running from?" she asked softly. "What are you running from?" He countered that fair enough. Elara took a long sip of coffee, using the time to decide how much truth she could afford. A man who promised forever and delivered betrayal. A sister who took what wasn't hers. A life that turned out to be a lie. Declan's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "That's why you were in the storm. I couldn't breathe in that city anymore." Every street corner, every cafe, they were everywhere together. Like I'd been erased from my own life. The words spilled out before she could stop them. So I ran, took my grandmother's journal, threw some things in a bag, and drove until the gas ran out. Then I walked until I couldn't anymore, and found my cabin, and found a dying Wolf. She corrected, meeting his gaze. Or thought I did. Declan's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he said nothing, and Elara wondered if she'd pushed too far. Then, slowly, he rolled up his sleeve. The scar on his shoulder was raised, pink weeks old, not ours, but in the exact location where she'd pressed gauze to torn flesh. Accelerated healing, he said flatly. Among other things, Elara's heart hammered. "You're not human." He said it like a confession, like something shameful. Not entirely. The world shifted again, but this time Elara held her ground. Her grandmother's journal burned in her backpack, pages filled with stories of shapeshifters and moon-blessed beings, of the line between human and animal that some could cross. Stories Elara had dismissed as folklore. "Show me," she whispered. "No. Why not?" "Because you're not ready." Declan set his mug down with carefully controlled force. "Because seeing what I am, what I become, it changes people. They either run or they try to cage me. I won't be caged again. The word struck like a blow. "Who hurt you?" Elara asked. His laugh was bitter. "How much time do you have?" "Apparently days." According to the snow, she moved closer, drawn by an instinct she didn't understand. "Talk to me, Declan. You know my story." "Fair is fair." He was silent so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "Then, I was born into a pack. A family of sorts. We had rules, hierarchy, purpose. I was supposed to be alpha, someday lead them, protect them, make decisions for the greater good. What happened? I fell in love with the wrong person." His voice went rough. "She was human. The pack saw it as weakness, betrayal of our bloodline. They gave me a choice. Give her up or be cast out." Elara's chest constricted. "You chose her." "I chose her," he confirmed. "And they made sure I'd regret it. They came for us one night. She fought God. She fought, but she was human and they were ... He stopped, swallowed hard. "They killed her to prove a point. That humans and shifters don't mix. That love doesn't conquer nature." The pain in his voice was so raw it brought tears to Elara's eyes. She reached out without thinking, fingers brushing his arm. He flinched but didn't pull away. "After, they offered to take me back. Said I'd learned my lesson, could return to the pack if I accepted their judgment as just." His eyes met hers, burning with old fury. "I told them to burn in hell. I came here. I've been here ever since, keeping away from humans, from packs, from anyone who might make me feel something again. But you saved me," Elara said. "Last night. You could have left the cabin, hidden until I was gone. But you stayed. I was bleeding out. I didn't have much choice. You had a choice this morning. You could have sent me back into the snow." She stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his skin, hotter than human, like standing near a banked fire. "Why didn't you?" Declan's gaze dropped to where her hand still rested on his arm. "Because you looked at me at the Wolf and you didn't see a monster. You saw something worth saving. The confession hung in the air between them, fragile and fierce. Outside, that distant howl came again, closer now. Declan's entire body went rigid, his head snapping toward the sound. When he looked back at Elara, his eyes had changed, pupils elongated, more animal than man. "Get away from the windows," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "Now, what is it?" "Trouble." He moved with inhuman speed, checking locks, closing curtains. The kind that doesn't knock before it kills. Chapter 4. When Shadows Have Teeth howls came in harmony, now 3 distinct voices circling the cabin like a noose tightening. Elara pressed herself against the wall, her pulse a drumbeat in her ears. Declan moved through the space with predatory efficiency, securing shutters, bolting doors, his movements too fast to be entirely human. The temperature in the cabin seemed to rise with his agitation, heat rolling off him in waves. "How many?" She whispered. 3, maybe 4. He grabbed a rifle from above the mantel. She hadn't even noticed it there. "They've been tracking me for weeks. I thought I'd lost them in the storm." "Tracking you? Why?" "Because I'm a loose end." He checked the rifle with practiced ease, his jaw tight. "Because I know too much about pack business. And because my former alpha doesn't believe in letting anyone walk away clean." A scratch came at the door, deliberate, taunting. "Claws on wood, Declan," a voice called from outside, smooth and mocking. "We know you're in there. We can smell you." "And we can smell her." Elara's blood turned to ice. Declan's eyes flashed amber, and for a moment, his face seemed to shift, features sharpening. Becoming something between man and beast. "She's nobody," Declan called back. His voice steady despite the fury Elara could see thrumming through him. "A hiker who got caught in the storm." "Let her go, Ronan. Your problem is with me." Laughter, cold and cruel. "Is that what you told yourself about the last one? That she was nobody?" A pause, heavy with implication. "We remember how that ended." Declan's knuckles went white on the rifle. Elara saw the pain lance through him fresh as the day it happened. 5 years compressed into a single breath of agony. "Don't," she said softly, moving to his side despite every instinct screaming at her to hide. "Don't let them use her against you." His eyes met hers, wild and desperate. "You need to understand something. If they get in here, they won't just kill me. They'll kill you to make a point. To prove that humans are collateral damage in our world. Then we don't let them in." "Elara, I didn't survive 3 days in the cold to die in a warm cabin." She grabbed his arm, felt the muscle coiled tight beneath her fingers. "Tell me what to do." Something flickered in his expression, surprise, admiration, something deeper she didn't have time to name. "The bedroom. There's a crawlspace beneath the floorboards. If things go bad, I'm not hiding while you fight alone. You're human, and you're injured." She pointed at his shoulder. "That wound is barely 12 hours old. I don't care how fast you heal. You need backup." A crash against the door made them both jump. Wood splintered but held. They were testing the defenses, probing for weakness. "Backup," Declan repeated, and despite everything, his mouth quirked. "You know how to shoot." "My grandmother taught me." Said a woman alone in the world needs to know how to protect herself. Elara held out her hand. "Give me a weapon." He studied her for a long moment, and she saw the war behind his eyes, the instinct to protect warring with the need to trust. Finally, he moved to a trunk by the window, pulling out a smaller rifle. "Silver bullets," he said, handing it to her. Ironic, considering, but effective. "Silver kills werewolves?" The word felt foreign on her tongue. "The stories are true." "Some of them." He positioned himself by the main door, rifle ready. "Silver doesn't kill us outright, but it prevents healing. Levels the playing field. Another impact, harder this time." The door frame groaned. "There's something you should know," Declan said, not looking at her. "If I shift, if I have to become what I am to protect, I might not be able to come back right away." "The Volf, it's harder to control when there's a threat. When there's something to protect. You're telling me you might lose yourself? I'm telling you that if I do, you'll need to run." The crawlspace leads to a tunnel that comes out half a mile north. Follow the stream. It'll take you to a road eventually. Declan, promise me. He finally turned, and the intensity in his gaze stole her breath. Promise me you'll run if I lose control. I won't. I can't be responsible for another death. Alara thought of Marcus, of all his empty promises. How he'd sworn to love her forever while planning his betrayal. But when she looked at Declan's scarred, broken, trying desperately to save her even as his past came to tear him apart, she saw something different. She saw someone who kept his word, even when it cost him everything. I promise. She lied. The door exploded inward. 3 wolves poured through. Massive and terrifying, their fur ranging from silver to midnight black. But it was the man who walked in behind them that made Alara's heart stop. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with steel gray hair and eyes that held no warmth whatsoever. Hello, Declan, he said pleasantly. It's been too long. Not long enough, Ronan. Declan's rifle didn't waver. Call them off, but we came all this way for a reunion. Ronan's smile was all teeth. And to meet your new friend. Tell me, does she know what you are? What you did? Leave her out of this. Oh, I don't think so. Ronan's attention slid to Alara, and she felt pinned by that predatory gaze. You see, sweetheart, our Declan here has a habit of playing with his food. 5 years ago, he brought a human into our world. Promised her love eternal. All that romantic nonsense. But when the pact demanded he prove his loyalty, he couldn't protect her. She died screaming. That's not what happened, Declan snarled. Isn't it? Ronan circled closer, the wolves moving with him like extensions of his will. You chose her over your pack. You broke the oldest law. And when we came to collect what was owed, you couldn't save her. So tell me, what makes this one different? What makes her worth dying for? The question hung in the air like a blade. Alara saw Declan's finger tighten on the trigger, saw the battle raging behind his eyes. He was calculating odds, weighing options, preparing to sacrifice himself to buy her time to run. She'd spent 3 days running from betrayal. She was done running. I do, Alara said, stepping forward. I make me worth it. She raised her rifle and fired. Word count, 1103. Chapter 5. Blood and moonlight. Silver bullet caught the black wolf in the shoulder, and its howl of pain shattered the frozen air. Chaos erupted. The wounded wolf lunged, but Declan was already moving, his rifle barking twice in rapid succession. One wolf went down, the other dodged with inhuman speed. Ronan merely smiled, as if this was all according to plan. She's got spirit, he said conversationally, even as violence exploded around him. I can see why you like her. But spirit doesn't stop teeth, Declan. You know that better than anyone. Declan's answer was a growl that shouldn't have come from a human throat. Alara watched in horrified fascination as his body began to change, bones shifting beneath skin, muscles rippling with impossible fluidity. His eyes blazed pure amber, no white remaining. Alara, run. His voice was distorted, caught between man and beast. But the silver wolf blocked the hallway to the bedroom, lips peeled back to reveal fangs the length of daggers. Alara backed toward the fireplace, rifle raised, her training warring with terror. These weren't animals. They were something other, something that moved with terrible intelligence. The wolf stalked closer, and she could see the calculation in its eyes. It was hurting her, separating her from Declan. She fired. The wolf dodged impossibly fast. And then it was on her. Alara went down hard, the rifle clattering away. Hot breath washed over her face, and she saw her death in those feral eyes. She threw up her arms in useless defense. A roar shook the cabin walls. The wolf was torn away with brutal force, and where Declan had stood, there was now something magnificent and terrifying. He was larger than the other wolves, his fur midnight black shot through with silver. His form somehow caught between human and beast, a nightmare-given flesh. But his eyes, those burning amber eyes, locked on hers for one brief moment. I've got you. She heard the words in her mind. Impossible and undeniable. Then he turned on the other wolves with savage fury. Alara scrambled backward, watching in awe and terror as Declan fought. He moved like violence personified, all controlled rage and deadly precision. The other wolves were fast, but he was faster, stronger, driven by something beyond pack hierarchy or territorial instinct. He was protecting her. Ronan watched it all with cold calculation, making no move to join the fight. Interesting, he murmured. Very interesting indeed. One wolf lay still, its neck twisted at an unnatural angle. The other to back toward their alpha, blooded and wary. Declan stood between them and Elora, his massive form heaving with breath. Blood matting his fur. Enough, Ronan commanded. And the wolves immediately sat, their aggression shuddering like a switchlight. I came here for answers, not a massacre. Declan snarled, but didn't advance. Elara could see the struggle in his posture, the human mind fighting for control over animal instinct. She pushed herself up, ignoring her screaming muscles, and did the only thing she could think of. She walked toward him. Elara. Don't. Ronan's warning was sharp, almost concerned. She ignored him. Step by careful step, she approached Declan's shifted form, her heart hammering but her hands steady. Up close, he was even more imposing, easily 7 feet tall, all muscle and fang and barely leashed violence. He could kill her with a single swipe, but he wouldn't. She knew it with a certainty that defied logic. Declan, she said softly, reaching out. It's okay. I'm safe. You saved me. The creature's eyes fixed on her, wild and unfocused. A growl rumbled in his chest, not threatening, but warning, dangerous. Stay back. I don't care, she whispered, and placed her palm against his chest, over where a human heart would beat. The fur was coarse beneath her fingers, hot as fever. She felt his heartbeat too fast, too hard, racing with the battle still singing in his veins. Come back, please. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, she felt the shift begin. It looked painful, bones grinding, muscles tearing and reforming, fur receding into skin. Declan collapsed to his knees, gasping, and Elara went down with him, supporting his weight as best she could. When he finally raised his head, he was human again. Naked, blood-streaked, and exhausted. But human, you didn't run, he rasped. His voice raw. I promised I would. You lied. Yes, she cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. And I'd do it again. Something passed between them, recognition, acceptance, the beginning of something that felt inevitable as gravity. Declan's hand came up to cover hers, and the touch was electric, sending heat racing through her veins. Well, Ronan said, his voice dripping with satisfaction. This is unexpected. They both turned to face him, Declan instinctively shifting to shield Elara with his body. Ronan stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking for all the world like a professor observing an interesting experiment. She's your mate, he continued, almost wonderingly. A true mate. Not just human companionship or loneliness talking. The real thing. I can see it in how you shift for her, how the bond pulls at you both. He smiled, and it wasn't entirely cruel. This changes things. It changes nothing, Declan snarled. Take your wolves and levo. I don't think so. Ronan gestured, and the 2 remaining wolves flanked him. You see, a mated pair is pack business, especially when one half is human and the other is a rogue alpha-born. The council will want to know about this. The council can go to hell. They'll come anyway. And they'll bring laws, judgments, and consequences. Ronan's expression turned almost pitying. You can't run from this, Declan. A mate bond this strong? It'll draw attention from every pack in the territory. They'll want to test it, break it, or claim it for themselves. Elara felt Declan's entire body go rigid with fury and fear. I won't let them touch her. Then you'll have to come home. Ronan let that sink in. Rejoin the pack. Accept the Alpha's authority. Let the council examine your bond and determine if it's legitimate or if you're just repeating past mistakes with a new face. Never. Then she dies. Maybe not today, but soon. Ronan turned toward the shattered door. Other packs are already sniffing around. They smelled your blood in the storm, sensed weakness. How long do you think you can protect her alone, wounded, in the middle of nowhere? He paused at the threshold, his wolves preceding him into the snow. "You have 3 days," he called back. 3 days to decide if your pride is worth her life. Choose wisely, Declan. This time, you might not get to watch her die from a distance. Then they were gone, vanishing into the white wilderness as if they'd never been there at all. The cabin fell silent except for their ragged breathing and the crackle of the fire. Elara felt Declan trembling against her, whether from exhaustion or emotion she couldn't tell. "He's right," Declan finally said, his voice breaking. "I can't protect you. Not alone. Not from what's coming." Elara thought of Marcus, who'd promised protection but delivered betrayal. She thought of her sister, who'd smiled while stealing her life. She thought of all the people who'd made her feel small, weak, dependent. Then she looked at the man who'd literally transformed into a monster to save her. "Then we don't face it alone," she said firmly. "We face it together." Word count 1195, Chapter 6. The weight of forever. Declan dressed in silence, his movements stiff with barely concealed pain. Elara watched from the couch, her grandmother's journal open in her lap, though she couldn't focus on the words. Her hands still trembled from adrenaline, her mind replaying the moment Declan's shifted form had locked eyes with her. "I've got you." She'd heard his voice in her head. "Impossible. Undeniable. You're bleeding," she said quietly. He glanced down at the gash across his ribs, already healing, but slower than before. "It'll close soon enough. Let me help." "Elara, please." She stood, retrieving what remained of her first aid supplies. "I need to do something. Anything, before I start screaming." That made him pause. He studied her face, seeing what she'd been trying to hide, the cracks forming in her composure, the way shock was giving way to the full weight of what had just happened. "What she just learned, okay?" he said softly, and sat on the edge of the couch. Elara knelt beside him, her fingers gentle as she cleaned the wound. This close, she could feel the heat radiating from his skin, could see the fine tremors running through his muscles. He was exhausted, running on fumes and sheer will. "Does it hurt?" she asked. The transformation. Every time, his voice was rough. "It's like dying and being reborn in the span of seconds, breaking apart and coming back together as something other." She pressed gauze to the wound, applying careful pressure. "And you did it to save me. I would have done it to save anyone, liar." The word came out gentle, not accusing. Ronan was right, wasn't he? About the mate bond. "That's why you shifted so fast. Why you could communicate with me while transformed." Declan's jaw tightened. "I don't know what we are yet." Mate bonds are rare, especially between human and shifter. "It could be." "Don't." She looked up at him, and he fell silent at the intensity in her gaze. "Don't diminish what we both felt. I may be new to your world, but I'm not stupid. Something happened when we touched. Something that goes beyond gratitude or proximity or loneliness. It's dangerous," he said, his voice dropping. "The mate bond isn't romance, Elara. It's biology, instinct. It makes shifters possessive, territorial, irrational. I've seen bonded pairs tear each other apart trying to navigate human emotions through animal instinct. Is that what happened with her?" "Your first love." Pain flashed across his face. "No, Kira and I, we weren't mates. We were just two people trying to bridge an impossible divide. I loved her, but it wasn't this." He gestured between them, frustrated. "It wasn't this pull, this certainty. And still, my pack killed her for it. Imagine what they'll do if they think you're actually bonded to me." Elara finished bandaging the wound, but didn't move away. "Tell me about the mate bond. Really, tell me. Not the dangers or the politics, the truth of it." Declan was quiet for a long moment, staring at the fire. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of generations. In shifter lore, mate bonds are gifts from the moon itself. Rare, precious, unbreakable. When do souls recognize each other, the bond forms whether they want it or not. It's instantaneous and absolute. You know your mate the moment you see them, smell them, touch them. His eyes found hers. The bond enhances everything. Emotions are sharper, senses more acute. Bonded pairs can feel each other's pain, share thoughts across distance, know when the other is in danger. That sounds beautiful. It's also a curse, because once the bond forms, being apart becomes physical agony. And if one mate dies, the other rarely survives the grief. They fade away, sometimes over years, sometimes within days. The bond doesn't break with death, it just becomes an open wound that never heals. Alara's breath caught. That's why you've been alone. You're afraid of that kind of loss again. I watched Kira die in my arms, and it nearly destroyed me. A mate bond. That kind of loss would actually kill me. He turned to face her fully, his expression raw. So yes, I'm terrified. Because when I look at you, when I touch you, I feel the bond starting to form. And I don't know if I'm strong enough to survive losing you. The confession hung between them, vulnerable and fierce. Alara felt tears prick her eyes, not from fear, but from recognition. She thought of Marcus, of how his betrayal had felt like dying. But it had been nothing compared to this. This wasn't just attraction or loneliness. This was her soul recognizing its other half. What if you don't lose me? She whispered, Alara, 3 days ago, I wanted to disappear. I drove into a storm hoping it would erase me, make me small enough that the pain couldn't find me anymore. She took his hand, lacing their fingers together. The touch sent sparks up her arm, and she saw his pupils dilate in response. But then I found you. Or you found me. And for the first time in months, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. You don't know what you're saying. The mate bond, it can make you feel things that aren't real. Stop telling me what I feel. There was steel in her voice now. I spent years with Marcus, trying to convince myself I felt something I didn't. I know the difference between real and pretend, between choice and obligation. This, she pressed his palm over her heart, where her pulse hammered against her ribs. This is real. Declan's control wavered. She saw it in the way his eyes flashed amber, in how his fingers curled against her chest as if he wanted to pull her closer but didn't dare. If we complete the bond, if we acknowledge it fully, there's no going back. You'd be tied to me, to my world, forever. You'd be a target for every pack that sees humans as weakness or contamination. And you'd be vulnerable to anyone who wanted to hurt you through me, Alara countered. I understand the risks, Declan, but I also understand something else. I've spent my whole life playing it safe, following the rules, making the sensible choice, being what everyone expected. And where did it get me? Alone in a cabin, running from a life that was never really mine. She moved closer, until they were breathing the same air. Maybe the bond is dangerous. Maybe it's impossible, but it's also mine. My choice, my risk to take. Her voice dropped to a whisper, unless you don't want it. Unless I'm not. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperation and surrender, fear and hope, all the things they'd been holding back crashing together in a single moment of perfect clarity. Alara gasped against his mouth, and Declan swallowed the sound, his hands coming up to frame her face like she was something precious and terrifying. The bond flared to life between them. She felt it like fire in her veins, like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. She felt his emotions bleeding into hers, longing, terror, wonder, need. And underneath it all, a fierce protective love that took her breath away. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, Declan pressed his forehead to hers. 3 days, he said roughly. We have 3 days to figure out how to survive this. Together. Alara agreed. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying with it the distant sound of howls. The packs were gathering. Time was running out. But for now, in the firelight, two souls found each other in the darkness and held on. Word count 1248, Chapter 7. Beneath the surface, night fell like a curtain, and with it came the cold. Alara watched Declan board up the shattered door, his movements efficient despite his wounds. The cabin felt smaller now, more intimate. Every glance between them carried weight, the air thick with everything unspoken since that kiss. We should eat, Declan said, not looking at her. Keep our strength up. Practical. One of us has to be, but there was warmth in his tone, a hint of humor she hadn't heard before. Elara found herself smiling as she moved to the kitchen, rummaging through supplies. Canned soup, dried pasta, coffee that smelled like salvation. The mundane tasks grounded her, even as her mind spun with impossible realities. She was falling in love with a werewolf. Now she was bonded to him, so deep, in ways that transcended simple human emotion. 3 days ago, she'd been running from betrayal. Now she was running towards something far more dangerous and infinitely more real. Your grandmother, Declan said, breaking the comfortable silence. You said she told you stories. What kind? Elara stirred the soup, memories rising like steam. All kinds of fairy tales, folk legends, ghost stories. But her favorites were about the changed ones, people who walked between worlds, who carried animal spirits inside them. She paused. I thought they were metaphors, ways to talk about human nature without being too direct. They weren't metaphors, no. She ladled soup into bowls, the simple domesticity surreal against the backdrop of violence and magic. She used to say that some people are born belonging to two worlds, and the trick is learning which one claims your heart. I never understood what she meant, and now I think she was trying to prepare me. Elara brought the bowls to the table, settling across from him. She died when I was 19, left me her journal, told me to read it when I was ready to see the truth beneath the stories. Declan's expression sharpened. Have you read it? Some it's dense, written in a mix of English and Old Gaelic, full of drawings and symbols I don't understand. She hesitated. There's a section about bonds, soul ties, she called them connections, that transcend logic or choice, written in stars and blood. May I see it? Elara retrieved the journal, its leather cover warm from being pressed against her chest all day. She handed it to Declan, watched his eyes widen as he carefully opened it. These symbols, he breathed, tracing a page with reverent fingers. This is old magic, ancient pack law, written in the language of the first shifters. He looked up, stunned. Your grandmother knew our world. She was part of it, somehow. A chill ran down Elara's spine. That's impossible. She was human. She raised me in a normal house, in a normal town, was she? Declan turned the journal toward her, pointing at a family tree sketched in fading ink. Names branched out like roots, some marked with small moons, others with suns. Look, these moon marks, they denote shifter blood. And this name here. His finger stopped on a name near the bottom of the tree. Elara Rosethorn, a moon, half-shaded, sat beside her name. What does that mean? Elara's voice came out hoarse, half-blood. One parent human, one parent shifter. Declan's eyes met hers, filled with wonder and apprehension. You're not fully human, Elara. You carry dormant Volf blood. That's why the bond formed so quickly. Why you could hear me when I was shifted. You're not just compatible with my world, you're part of it. The room tilted. Elara gripped the table edge, her entire understanding of herself fragmenting and reforming. But I've never shifted. Never felt anything like what you describe. Dormant bloodlines often stay dormant without a catalyst. Strong emotion, life-threatening danger. Or he trailed off, his gaze dropping to where her hand rested near his. A mate bond. That can awaken even the quietest Volf. You're saying I could become like you. I'm saying you already are like me. You just haven't transformed yet. Declan closed the journal carefully. This changes everything. Elara, the pack, the council, they can't deny a bond between two shifters. It's sacred law. Ronald's threats. His ultimatum, they lose all power if you awaken your Volf. Hope flickered, then died. But I don't know how. I don't know if I even can. You can. His hand covered hers, and the touch sent sparks racing up her arm. I can feel your Volf beneath your skin, sleeping but present. With time, with guidance, you could call her forth. How much time? The question hung heavy. 3 days. They had 3 days. Declan's jaw tightened. Normally, months, years, even, first shifts are dangerous, unpredictable. Forcing one could kill you or drive you mad. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. But there's another way, older, riskier. Tell me, a bonded pair can share power during the full moon. If we complete the mate bond fully, not just acknowledgement your Volf would rise to meet mine. The moon and the bond together would be strong enough to catalyze your first shift. He turned back to her, his expression tortured. But completing a bond means, I know what it means. Alara's cheeks heated, but she held his gaze. My grandmother's journal was very thorough on that point. Blood shared, bodies joined, souls entwined under moonlight. The air between them crackled with tension. It's not just physical, Declan said, his voice rough. The completion ritual binds us in every way. You'd feel everything I feel, know my thoughts, carry my burdens. My past, my guilt, my fear, all of it would become yours. And mine would become yours. There are no secrets between bonded mates, no walls. No escape. Sounds terrifying. It is. When's the next full moon? He blinked, thrown by her directness. Tomorrow night. Alara's heart hammered, but her resolve didn't waver. Then we have a day to prepare, to decide if we're really doing this. Alara, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She stood, moving to him with purpose. Because the alternative is watching you surrender to a pack that destroyed everything you loved, or running until they hunt us down like animals. This is the only path forward where we both survive. You'd give up your humanity for that? For me, I'd embrace what I already am, she corrected. And yes, I'd do it for you, for us, for the chance at something real and true and mine, she cupped his face, feeling the heat of his skin, the tension in his jaw. Unless you don't want me, unless the bond is obligation rather than choice for you, Declan's control shattered. He pulled her against him, one hand tangling in her hair, the other splayed across her back. Want you? His laugh was broken. Alora, wanting you is like wanting air, essential, inevitable, terrifying. Then trust me. She rose on her toes, bringing their faces close. Trust that I know what I'm choosing. Trust that I'm strong enough for this. I do trust you. His forehead pressed against hers, their breath mingling. It's the universe I don't trust. It's taken everyone I've ever loved. I won't survive losing you. Then don't lose me. Her lips brushed his, feather light. Hold on, and don't let go. No matter what comes, the kiss that followed was different from the first, slower, deeper, layered with promise and acceptance. Alara felt the bond pulse between them, stronger now, eager to complete itself. She felt Declan's Volf rising to meet something inside her, something that had been sleeping her entire life. When they finally broke apart, his eyes were pure amber, and she could swear she felt something stir beneath her skin. Something wild, something waiting. Tomorrow night, Declan whispered against her lips. Under the moon. We finish this together, Alara agreed. Outside, clouds gathered, hiding stars. The moon would rise full and bright tomorrow, bearing witness to a bond that would change everything. If they survived until then. Word count, 1297. Chapter 8, the day before forever dawn broke gray and heavy. The kind of morning that felt like a howled breath. Alara woke to find Declan already up, standing at the window with his arms crossed. The set of his shoulders told her he hadn't slept. She sat up slowly, the blanket falling away, and watched him watch the forest. They're out there, he said without turning. I can feel them. 4 packs now, maybe 5. Words spreading about the potential bond. They're curious, hungry for what? Power, a bonded pair with dormant bloodline awakening. That's the kind of story that becomes legend. Some will want to witness it. Others will want to prevent it. He finally looked at her, and the exhaustion in his eyes made her chest ache. We're running out of time to change our minds. Alara rose, padding across the cold floor to stand beside him. Through the window, she could see tracks in the fresh snow, too large to be natural wolves, too purposeful to be random. I haven't changed mine. You should. His voice was rough. Last chance to run, Alara. I could create a distraction, give you time to reach the main road. Stop. She turned him to face her, her hands firm on his arms. Stop trying to save me from this, from you. I'm not Kira. I'm not going to die because you love me. Pain flashed across his face. You don't know that? No, but I know this. I'm tired of living half a life. I'm tired of being safe and small and acceptable. Her voice strengthened. My grandmother left me that journal for a reason. She wanted me to know what I am, what I could become. Maybe she even knew I'd find you. Find this. Declan's hands came up to frame her face, his touch achingly gentle. The ritual tonight, it's not just transformation. The bond completion. It's intimate, vulnerable. I'll see every part of you, and you'll see every part of me. The good, the terrible, the shameful. There's no hiding. I don't want to hide. You say that now, Declan. She rose on her toes, bringing their faces close. I spent 3 years with Marcus, and he never really saw me. Never wanted to. He saw a version of me that fit his needs, his plans. But you? She pressed her palm over his heart. You've seen me at my worst, broken, desperate, terrified, and you're still here. So yes, let me see all of you. I'm not afraid. Something in his expression cracked open. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, finally her mouth, tender and fierce at once. When he pulled back, his eyes had shifted to Amber. We need to prepare, he said roughly. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. The day passed in strange domesticity threaded with magic. Declan taught her pack customs, the old laws that governed shifter society. He explained the hierarchy: alpha, beta, omega, and how a true mate bond transcended all of it. Bonded pairs were sacred, untouchable, their union blessed by the moon itself, but only if the bond is recognized as legitimate, he cautioned. The council can challenge it, demand proof. That's why awakening your Volf is crucial. A bond between two shifters can't be questioned, and if I can't shift, Alara asked quietly, then we fight. Together, simple, absolute. They went through her grandmother's journal page by page. Declan translating the old Gaelic, explaining symbols Alara had never understood. It was a grimoire of sorts, documenting generations of her family's connection to the shifter world. Your great-grandmother was a pack healer, Declan said, pointing to a name marked with the sun and moon intertwined. Rare, someone who could walk between worlds, accepted by both. Your grandmother inherited the gift but chose to live among humans. She must have hoped the bloodline would skip you, or hoped I'd be strong enough to choose for myself. As afternoon faded to evening, Declan led her outside despite the danger. You need to feel the forest, he explained. Connect with the wild before you try to shift. Your Volf needs to know this place, trust it. The snow crunched beneath their boots, and Alara felt eyes watching from the shadows. The other packs, waiting, judging. Ignore them, Declan said, taking her hand. His heat bled into her palm, chasing away the cold. Focus on me. On the bond, he taught her to sense the forest the way shifters did, not with eyes and ears, but with something deeper. Instinct, the pulse of life moving through trees and earth. The ancient rhythm that connected all living things. Close your eyes, he murmured. Breathe, feel. Alara obeyed. At first, there was only cold and the sound of wind. Then, slowly, she felt the thrumming beneath the surface of things. Heartbeats in the distance. The slow metabolism of winter sleeping creatures. And something else, something calling to her from inside her own chest. Her Volf. Still sleeping, but stirring. I feel her, Alara whispered, wonder coloring her voice. She's there, waiting, good. Declan's voice was close to her ear, his breath warm. Tonight, when the moon rises, you'll call her fully. And I'll be right there with you. When they returned to the cabin, the temperature had dropped sharply. Declan built up the fire while Alara made coffee, and they sat together on the couch, watching flames dance. Tell me something, Alara said softly. Something nobody else knows. Declan was quiet for a long moment. After Kira died, I tried to die too. Walked out into the woods during the full moon, let the shift take me, and just ran. hoped I'd run far enough that the wolf would forget to come back. He stared into the fire, but it didn't work. The wolf always remembers, always comes home. Alara's throat tightened. I'm glad it did. So am I now. He turned to her, vulnerability naked on his face. Your turn. Tell me something true. She thought of all her secrets, all the small shamas she carried. When I found Marcus with Bethany, part of me was relieved, because it meant I didn't have to keep pretending I was happy. That what we had was enough. She swallowed hard. I think I always knew he didn't really love me. I just didn't want to be alone. You're not alone anymore, I know. She leaned against him, and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. That's the terrifying part. With you, I can't pretend, can't hide. Tonight, when we complete the bond, you'll see everything, all the ugly, broken parts I've spent years trying to bury. And you'll see mine. His lips brushed her hair. Every failure, every moment of weakness, every time I wasn't strong enough or brave enough or good enough, then we'll be broken together. She tilted her head back to look at him. And maybe that's better than being perfect alone. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and Alara felt the bond pulse between them, anticipation, promise, inevitability. Tonight, under the moon, they would become something neither could be alone. If fear didn't break them, first as darkness fell, they prepared. Declan cleared space in the cabin's center, drawing symbols on the floor with ash and salt, ancient marks of protection and binding. Alara bathed, washing away the last remnants of her old life, and dressed in a simple white dress Declan had found in a trunk, probably his mother's, he said, from before she left the pack, when the first rays of moonlight filtered through the windows. Declan took her hand. Last chance, he said, but there was hope in his eyes now. Not just fear. No more chances. Alara smiled, feeling her wolf stir beneath her skin. Only choices. And I choose you. Then let's meet the moon together. They stepped outside into silver light, and the forest held its breath. Chapter 9, Moonrise and Transformation. Full moon hung like a pearl in the velvet sky, bathing the clearing in silver light. Alara stood at the circle's center, Declan before her, his eyes already shifting amber. Around them, the forest pulsed with watching presence, the gathered packs, waiting to witness what came next. Are you ready? Declan's voice was rough, barely human. Yes. No hesitation. No fear. He took her hands, and the bond flared between them like lightning. Alara gasped as power rushed through her veins, ancient, wild, undeniable. She felt her wolf rising, clawing toward consciousness after a lifetime of sleep. Open yourself to it, Declan murmured. Don't fight. Let her come. The transformation hit like a tidal wave. Pain exploded through every nerve as bones shifted, reformed. Alara screamed, but the sound became a howl, primal, triumphant. Her vision sharpened, colors bleeding into new spectrums. Sense overwhelmed her pine. Snow, Declan's familiar warmth, and beneath it all, the wild song of her own wolf finally awake. When the shift completed, she stood on four legs, her fur silver white in the moonlight. She looked at Declan, who had shifted alongside her, his massive black form protective. Proud. You're beautiful, his voice echoed in her mind. My mate, my equal. The bond snapped fully into place. And suddenly Alara felt everything, his love, fierce and consuming, his relief that she'd survived, his wonder at seeing her wolf finally free. And he felt her joy, her certainty, her absolute trust in what they'd become together. The watching packs emerged from the shadows. Ronan stepped forward in human form, his expression unreadable. The council will hear of this. A successful awakening, a legitimate bond between two shifters. He inclined his head, respect, not submission. You've won your freedom, Declan. Both of you, but Declan's attention never left Alara. Run with me, he said. Let me show you what we are. They ran, through moonlit forest, over frozen streams, racing the wind itself. Alara's wolf reveled in the speed, the strength, the absolute rightness of moving through the world with senses fully alive. And beside her, Declan, her mate, her anchor, her home, when they finally returned to human form in the cabin at dawn, tangled together in blankets by the fire. Elara felt complete for the first time in her life. What happens now? She asked, tracing patterns on his chest. Now we decide. Declan caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. We can stay here, isolated. Or we can return to pack life, claim our place in the world we were born to. What do you want? I want whatever future has you in it. His amber eyes held hers. Everything else is negotiable. Elara smiled, feeling her Wolf purr with contentment beneath her skin. Then let's build something new. Not running, not hiding, together, Declan agreed, and kissed her as morning light broke through the windows. The storm had passed. The hunt was over. And in its place, something beautiful and wild had been born, a bond that would weather any darkness. A love that had crossed between worlds. They had found each other in the cold and claimed their forever in moonlight. And that was only the beginning.